Hey guys, and welcome back to our tutorial for concepting, modeling, sculpting, texturing and implementing our cool slug thrower rifle. If you're new to this series, I recommend watching the previous episodes first, because we're gonna go straight ahead and work on the Zbrushing today. Last time, as you may remember, we finished our model, well, the low poly variant actually, and we're ready to get it into Zbrush, paint the high poly version or sculpt the high poly version, and after that we're gonna push it into Substance. But that's not for this episode. This episode we're just gonna sculpt it. So without any further ado, let's go. First I'm making the last final bit of preparation in Maya. I really realized I wanted the shells to have actual fluid in them and actual slugs in them. Therefore I needed to have the models for that, and I needed to place them in the shells. In Substance Painter later on I'm gonna use a glass material, like an opacity material, to make it look really awesome. I'm gonna use an emission map to make the fluid glow yellow, and I'm gonna make the slugs a little bit less opaque, so they look like they are kind of floating in the fluid. So that's gonna be cool. You could possibly also do this with a light effect, maybe a normal map. I'm not really sure how that would work, but like a holographic effect you could use. I chose to use a model purely because I think I have more control over that process. And also I wanted to experiment with opaque materials. And it really gives a really cool effect to see bottles or glass objects with other things in them. It's something that in the game industry is kind of a new thing still. Not a lot of games do it, because it's generally pretty performance heavy. However, for a portfolio piece like this, it's perfectly fine to use it. So you see me put the fluids and the slugs into the capsules and do the last bit of preparation for sculpting. Also, I am exporting both as FBX and as OBJ. You'll need an OBJ for Zbrush because it doesn't take FBXs, and it could be useful for Substance Painter. However, for engine use and for Sketchfab use, FBX is way more useful. So that's why I'm exporting as both. One important thing to remember is as well, once you've exported as OBJ and worked on it in Zbrush, you shouldn't move your object in your scene, in your Maya scene that is, and then export for Substance, because it will screw around with the normal maps and it won't fit anymore. One easy way to check if your high-res model you're gonna make in Zbrush matches with your low-res model you made in Maya is just by importing it into Maya. You may have to do a low-res version of that, because Maya doesn't like big objects. But you can see if they match, if they are at the right place. So right here we're jumping into Zbrush, and you see me creating a Dynamesh. At this point it doesn't really matter how high your poly count is, as long as your computer can obviously run it. I'd suggest putting it a bit lower at first, just so you can smooth out the edges easily. But then just go all out, put it really high, so you can get those nice details. And go all out with your details. I mean, you're gonna make a normal map either way now, so you might as well just put in the detail you want. Try not to make it too busy, but don't save on detail. Keep in mind, however, that because this is going to be baked over the low poly model, that it has to be somewhat true to the low poly model in order to recognize the surface that it's going to be projected on. So you're not going to be able to add spikes or something or really change the shape. So keep it pretty close to the surface you're already having, and if you really want to add stuff, you're either gonna have to go back to your Maya model and add it there, or you're gonna have to retopologize it later, which is an option as well. I mean, if you're doing cloth or something, it's way easier to do it in Zbrush than in Maya. So you might as well do it in ZBrush, or organic shapes for that matter too. You can do it in ZBrush, and then you can retopologize it in Maya and make a low poly mesh from there. This workflow, however, we're going to try to stay away from Maya from now on. And we're going to do ZBrush and then bake it on Substance. So that's why you're going to have to be pretty close to the model you already have. So you can still add all the details you want. It doesn't mean you have to dial back on your details. Just keep them pretty close to the surface. You see me using symmetry again, which is very useful for objects like this. And very useful for random details, because you're not going to be able to recreate them unless you're using symmetry. As you can see, I'm mainly just using the clay buildup brush. Also using the pinch brush for the sharp edges and stuff like that. And in some cases I'm using the chisel brush in order to get those nice engravings and stuff. Don't forget that this particular gun is a post-apocalyptic one, so it has to be a bit damaged and a bit dirty. So that's why I'm scratching it, making damages at places I think they should be. Like on the edge head and around the edge head, because she's probably gonna hit with that. The barrel, because, well, that's something that sticks out, so it's gonna hit stuff. And that's a rule for anything really. Also the magazine a bit, because it rotates, of course. And I'm making the fabric look more like fabric. I'm also making use of the masking brush in order to get cool details, cool panel-like details. You basically just mask a piece, get the clay buildup tool and just brush over it once or twice, and it gives a really cool weapon-like look. This technique also really works well with armor, with tanks, with anything really. Masking is a very powerful tool in ZBrush. So try that. And remember, try to have fun in this phase. This is one of the most fun phases, I think. It's one of the most creative ones, because you're just able to go all out with your details. So try to enjoy it. So there it is, my finished sculpt. I hope you like it. I do. I think it turned out pretty okay. I mean, I think I might want to add a couple of details still, but I really don't want to make it too busy, and well, I have to move on to the next part. So that was the episode. Next time we're gonna focus on texturing, of course. We're gonna make the model come to life. Bake it, of course, over the low poly model, and get all those cool little details painted. Mess around with a couple of materials, like the glass material, like the emission material. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So thanks so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!